こんにちは、四国メタンです。この動画は画像の動画の要点をまとめる形で編集したものになります。Love Yourself 4830という海外の方の動画です。英語なので日本ではほとんど知られていないのですが、本当に心に響く内容なので皆さんにも共有したいと思い動画にしました。元動画と投稿者様のチャンネルは概要欄に貼っておきますのでご確認ください。それでは本編参りましょう。まずは投稿者様についてお話しします。右の男性がそうなのですが、彼は娘さんを自殺で亡くされています。左の女性がその娘さんなのですが、彼女は13歳という若さで自ら命を絶ってしまいました。まさに絶望的で立ち直ることもできないような状況です。そんな中、彼がどのようにして重りに出会ったのか、そして最愛の娘の死というものをどうやって受け入れていくのかを動画を通して語ってらっしゃるのでご覧いただきたいと思います。
As the title of this video suggests, I lost my 13-year-old daughter to suicide in June of 2023. In the wake of her death, my perspective on basically everything in life has changed. Time, love, money, art, none of these things are what they used to be. As I stumble forward, desperately trying to piece together some semblance of a new life, I find myself not only playing video games as a means of distracting myself, I also appreciate aspects of gaming that I didn't pay much attention to in the past. That brings us to Omori. I've been aware of this game's existence for years, but it just didn't seem like the kind of game I'd be into. Don't get me wrong, I love RPGs. They are perhaps my all-time favorite genre of games. But as someone who's used RPG Maker for over 20 years, I'm painfully aware of its reputation. While I love RPG Maker and have always had a lot of fun with it, it has produced an endless number of, well, subpar games. Because Omori was created using RPG Maker, I was admittedly a skeptic of it. But as I said, my daughter's death has changed my perspective on a lot of things. Gaming has become an integral part of my grieving process, so it's only fair that I dedicate some time and energy into the games that I've had an emotional connection with since losing Allison. I figured it was time to give this game a fair shot.
はい、ということで投稿者様がどのようにして重りに出会ったのか、そして娘さんを亡くされてからどのようにして過ごしてきたか、とても鮮明に語っておられました。内容をまとめますと、娘さんを亡くされてから少しずつですが彼は気持ちの整理を進めており、その中で重りに出会いました。最初はあまり興味がなかったとのことですが、もともと RPG が好きだったということに加え、ストーリーにも共感できる可能性があったため遊ぶ決意をしたわけですね。それと驚いたのですが、話の中で娘さんを2023年6月に亡くされたという内容がありましたよね。個人的な感想ですが、これって結構最近といえば最近です。まだ1年半ちょっとしか経っていないのに、ここまで鮮明にお話をされているのはすごいなと感じました。そして重りをプレイしようと思うのもすごいですよね。重りはうつや自殺などを取り扱う非常にセンシティブなゲームです。普通なら彼のような状況でこのゲームをプレイしようとは思えないはずです。共感できるという理由もあるのでしょうが、本当の理由は動画の最後に語られていましたのでぜひ最後までご覧ください。ということで、そんな状況の中、彼は重りをプレイしてどんなことを思ったのでしょうか。ここからは元動画の特に印象的な部分を抜粋していきます。まずはゲームのオープニングシーンをご覧ください。
Now that we've covered the basics, let's get into the story itself. When booting up the game, you are met with the text, "Don't worry, everything is going to be okay." You see a boy sitting on the floor in the dark with his head buried in his knees, and another trying to console him. I can't tell you how many times I've felt this very same way since my daughter died. 15 seconds in, and I can already tell that this is going to be a very emotional experience.
ということで、オープニングシーンでした。始まりからすでに心に来る内容でしたね。投稿者様も娘さんを亡くされてからというもの、サニーやバジルと同じような感情を抱いたという話でしたが、大丈夫、きっとうまくいくという言葉を彼も自分自身にかけ続けてきたのかもしれません。続いてはサニーがゲルと外に出るシーンをご覧いただきます。
Sunny awakens to knocking at his door. It's Kel, coming to see if he can coax Sunny out for a visit before he moves away. We start to piece together that in the real world, Mari passed away 4 years ago, and her death drove everyone apart. This is the first of many parallels between this game and my experience. Grief has a terrible way of dividing you and the people in your life.
ということでケルと再会するシーンでした。最後の言葉が個人的にかなりグッときたので抜粋させていただきました。悲しみは人々を引き裂くもの。投稿者様も多くは語っておられませんでしたが、娘の死後の人間関係に関して多くの共感ができるのでしょうね。私は先ほど彼がこんなセンシティブなゲームをする理由は最後に語られると言いましたが、共感できるということが嘘の理由というわけではありません。ストーリーへの共感はとても重要な要素だと思います。次のシーンではそんなストーリーについて改めて語っておられますので、ご覧いただきたいと思います。
Omori is separated from the others and left to explore a dark library, giving us our first true set of clues into the real-world events of Sunny's trauma if we as the player are able to discern the redacted names in the books. Normally, tedious tasks like this in video games is something I would just pass by, but I was captivated by the story at this point. Playing Omori is like reading a book that I didn't want to put down because despite how painful some of it was to experience, I understood and related to that pain.
ということで、ストーリーについてでした。他にもご紹介したいシーンが多すぎるので、ここからは元動画の翻訳メインでご覧いただきたいと思います。ということで続いては、バジルが皆に忘れられるシーンです。
After exploring Deepwell a bit, Omori finds Kel, who explains that the rest of the group all ended up getting jobs at the nearby casino, Last Resort. The two explore the casino and are reunited with the rest of the group, but it seems as though they are all starting to forget what they were doing and how they got there in the first place, including their search for Basil. A side note here, this is one of my personally greatest fears: forgetting. I've seen so many people get old and forget most of their lives, and that terrifies me to no end. My memories are so very precious to me, a window into my life in which my daughter was still here with me. I can't think of any crueler fate than not being able to remember her and the love that she gave me.
そんなわけで、忘れるということについての話でした。続いては枯れた花を見るシーンです。
They walk the wooded trail to Basil's house, again giving chase to a shadowy apparition of him. This time, all of the flowers along the way are dead and can't be revived. Basil explains why he planted the flowers in the first place. Each of them represents one of the main characters. Roses represent Hiro, who is universally loved. Cacti flowers represent Kel because he is hardy and resilient, things like that. It is also a stern reminder of the finality of death, something I still struggle to understand and accept in the wake of my daughter's death. I hate that death is so mysterious and permanent, but respect that this game at least acknowledges that fact.
ということで、死の不可逆性についての話でした。続いてはブラックスペースのシーンです。
Welcome to Black Space. Omori, now without Aubrey, Kel, and Hiro, lands in a black ocean. He swims to shore and navigates a forest path covered in thick spider webs. He continues forward, cutting the webs with his knife as he goes. The forest gives way to another staircase. At the top is Mari, resting peacefully in a clear coffin atop a bed of white orchids. It's truly a sight to behold. It brought me to tears. Omori, Sunny, clearly loves and reveres his sister so much that even in Black Space, the darkest part of his mind, a hallowed spot to preserve Mari remains. I relate to this too. There is a lot of darkness related to my grief and trauma that I'm still sorting through. I probably will be for the rest of my life. But despite that, the memory of my daughter is so deeply precious to me, I would do anything to preserve it.
ということで、守りたいものについての話でした。続いては、サニーの家にケルとヒロがお泊まりするシーンです。
Kel is still in his room asleep, having not heard the thump of Sunny hitting the floor. Hiro, however, is gone. Sunny wanders around the dark house and comes across the piano room, an area of the house he'd previously refused to enter if you tried. Mari, dressed in all white, is seated at the piano, playing a soft, sad waltz. She recounts her and Sunny playing together, practicing for a recital they were supposed to perform. She apologizes for pushing him so hard. Just then, Hiro enters to find Omori alone. He reminisces of Mari, saying he can't understand why she chose to leave the way she did. I have this same thought every day, Hiro.
続いてはマリが吊るされていた切り株を見るシーンです。
The 4 teammates, now somewhat reconciled and reformed, decide to go check on Basil and apologize. Upon arriving at Basil's house, Polly tells the group that Basil isn't home. He's visiting his grandmother in the hospital. As a means of passing time until he returns, they decide to go back to Sunny's house, where they end up in his backyard. What used to be a common hangout spot, including their secret treehouse, is now a quiet and hallowed place. A lonely stump sits in the back of the yard, the only remnants of the tree that Mari's body was found hanging from. I know that feeling, to look upon the place where someone you love left this earth. It's a very heavy thing to carry in your heart and mind. Suddenly, Aubrey rushes out of the treehouse and the boys follow. Back outside, Aubrey places a pinwheel in the stump and begins discussing an important and often overlooked part of her grief, her anger. She expresses how angry she felt that the world kept turning after Mari died, how left behind she felt. I understand that all too well. When my daughter died, I became angry too. The passing of time became foreign to me. I couldn't understand how people just moved on when my world had stopped. If this sounds familiar to you, it's okay to be angry after suffering great loss. And if you don't quite understand, well, that's okay too. Just try to be patient if you know someone who is.
そして物語は最終局面に進みます。ここからはマリが亡くなる一連の写真を見るシーン、そしてサニーが精神世界をさまようシーンを続けてご覧いただきます。
He eventually comes upon another large tree, only this one has a noose hanging from it. It's here he finds the last photo. We now discover what really happened the day that Mari died. Placing the photos back in order reveals the terrible truth. Mari did not die by suicide. The day of the recital, Mari and Sunny got into an argument at the top of the stairs when Sunny pushed her. Mari fell down the stairs, breaking her neck. Overwhelmed and in shock at what he had done, Sunny falls apart. Basil arrives to find Sunny in a state of panic and, in a desperate attempt to try and protect him, helps Sunny move Mari's body outside where they hanged her from a tree to make it look like a suicide. My heart can't take this. Let's pause. Sunny enters his house, remembering the key he found on the photograph. On the way to the closet where the toy box rests, he returns to the piano room one last time to find Mari seated, playing the same sweet, soft waltz. She leaves him with a short but powerful message. Know that I'll always be watching over you, okay? As long as you remember me, I'll be there. It makes me wonder if my daughter has the same thought, wherever she is now. He leaves the house to find himself on a long stretch of highway running through the rain. Memories of days gone play, showing us the happier time when Mari was still alive and the 6 friends were practically inseparable. It's really a beautiful thing to watch. It reminds me to try to do the same with my daughter, focus on the beautiful memories I have with her, not the fact that she's gone.
それでは最後にエンドロールと投稿者様のプレイし終わった感想をご覧いただきます。彼の言葉に注目してほしいので、私とはここでお別れとさせていただきますね。
Sunny enters Basil's room where he finds Aubrey, Kel, and Hiro at his bedside. The trio turns to Sunny, who gives us the story's final words. I have to tell you something. Roll credits. Wow, what a story. What an experience. So let's get to what most of you probably clicked on this video to hear. How did I feel playing Emori? The answer is complicated. I'm going to be honest with you. Playing Emori was one of the hardest things I've done since burying my daughter. She loved this game. The emotional parallels between her situation and the game's story are nothing short of heartbreaking. One thing that I've struggled with, that any parent that loses a child to suicide struggles with, is guilt. I feel so overwhelmingly guilty for not being able to protect her from herself. I worried that her being exposed to content like Emori was detrimental to her mental health. A part of me hates this game for being so dark, and hates myself even more for not paying more attention to her playing it. But let me be clear, I understand that that train of thought isn't totally rational, and I do not blame this game for my daughter's death. My daughter died of a medical condition. Though it's shown in a very dark way, dealing with trauma and guilt are one of this game's most powerful messages. Both Sunny and Basil are stricken with overwhelming guilt that manifests itself into terrifying, nebulous creatures that do real harm to them. I understand how this feels and appreciate how well this game conveys that feeling. So if I feel so negatively towards it, why even play it in the first place? I suppose I did it mostly for some perspective. This playthrough was cathartic in a way. I didn't ever think I'd be able to play this game. Ever. I never thought I'd be strong enough to. And don't get me wrong, I had to stop several times during my playthrough and this editing to cry or just give my heart a break. Even before I played it, this game had a way of pulling at my heartstrings. I remember the early days after her death. My mind would often replay the awful sequence of events, something I've come to refer to as the dark place. I understand now that my mind did this because it didn't want to believe what had happened. It didn't want to accept it as reality. Because what I experienced that day was surely too terrible to be real, my brain replayed it over and over and over, trying to find some sort of logical fallacy to disprove it. Was it a dream? Was I in a coma? Was she really dead or just sleeping? Your mind demands you examine every fiber of the memory in full detail on repeat. Eventually, after thousands of times of coming to the same conclusion, acceptance slowly starts to set in, but it takes weeks, months, even years. I still have not fully accepted that she's gone. I may never in this lifetime. This cycle is not unlike the cycle that Omori goes through as he jumps between worlds. I miss my daughter so much. Playing through Omori has given me a small peek into her mind. It wasn't that long ago that I myself was 13 years old and struggling to navigate life. I wish I had done a better job of trying to help her navigate. I wish I had played Omori sooner. As difficult as playing it was, the game has given me a wonderful gift, a new connection with my daughter, a shared experience. I believe that someday her and I will be reunited in the afterlife, and we will be able to sit down together and talk about this game and what it means to each of us. Though it's certainly not for everyone, and I wouldn't recommend any young kid play it, Omori is nothing short of a masterpiece. If you can handle a game with a dark narrative like this, do yourself a favor and give Omori a try. To Omocat, in the very, very small chance that you see this someday, a huge thank you to you and your team for the years of stress, anguish, hard work, and love that went into this project. I know your road was not an easy one to walk, but you should be proud for having walked it. You have truly created more than a game. You have created art, something powerful that has the ability to get people to better understand trauma and grief, something our society tries to avoid at seemingly all costs. I believe that you have made the world a better place, and I appreciate you to no end. And to my daughter, if you're watching this, I love you, kid, and I'm so grateful I got to be your dad.